Hello, my name is Aaron and welcome to another video. Today we're reviewing the Sony PZ18-105mm f4 lens. So, a couple of months ago I picked up this lens, which full name is the Sony PZ18-105 f4 OSS G lens, which is a bit of a mouthful. Personally, I was in the market to pick up a zoom lens to replace the 16-50mm kit lens, which has served me well over the years, but it was time for an upgrade. So what I was looking for was all the same features of the kit lens, such as OSS and autofocus, but with a similar or longer zoom range, which the 18-105 Sony has. This lens is an E-mount APS-C lens. So, before we get started, if you haven't seen my videos before, I make lots of videos about tips and tricks for Sony E-mount cameras. So if that sounds like your sort of thing, please consider subscribing to the channel and dropping a like on the video. So let's talk first about that zoom range. 18-105mm is a reasonable range for a telephoto lens. 18 is wide enough for videos such as this. I'm not using this lens at the moment, but for most of my other videos, I am now using the 18-105 for my YouTube videos. So perfectly wide enough for videos such as this, but also wide enough for landscape photography, for example. Can hit all those desirable focal lengths which are great for portrait photography, and also zooms in well enough for stuff like wildlife and sports photography. So really a good all-rounder, probably a good lens to pick up if you're in the market for something that has that flexibility of focal lengths. Now the other thing that I was really interested in getting was as good a low light performance as possible, which is always a bit of a sacrifice when you get a zoom lens. Now this lens has a constant f4 maximum aperture, which means at its widest, 18mm, all the way to 105mm, you get the same amount of light being let into the lens at any zoom range. This makes for consistent shots where you don't have to adjust your exposure at any zoom range. Handy if you're utilising the zoom while doing video, for example. Of course, there are many lenses on the market with a higher maximum aperture than f4, but that's a sacrifice you have to make when choosing a zoom lens. But I do find the performance of the f4 aperture on this lens still pretty good. I still find it more than suitable for nighttime photography. Of course, you're not going to be using it for stuff like astrophotography, but for just nighttime shots, it works pretty well for me. And you do also get a decent amount of background blur at f4 for things like portraits, for example, but maybe not quite as much as you would get from a faster lens. The Sony 18-105 is a power zoom lens, which means that the zoom is powered by the camera itself and isn't operational when the camera is powered off. You can see here there's a wide telephoto rocker on the lens itself to power the power zoom. Of course, if you prefer, you can still twist the zoom ring to zoom in and out. Another big advantage of the power zoom on this camera is that you can barely hear it at all, which is a big advantage when zooming in and out and taking video. So now let's have a closer look at the lens. It has a metal finish to the lens, which makes the build quality seem very high, but surprisingly this lens only weighs about half a kilogram, so not too heavy in your camera bag. You can see straight away it's larger than most E-mount lenses. The size of the Sony 18-105 is worth bearing in mind if you're used to having a compact setup, as it does increase the size of the camera significantly. Looking at the front of the lens, you can see that the glass element is pretty large. And you can see the information on the lens here, so it has a 72mm filter thread, a 0.45 meter minimum focus range at 18mm, and a 0.95 meter focus range at 105mm. Here you can see the zoom ring, which is the larger of the two rings, and has a pretty smooth action on it. The focus ring is the smaller of the two rings, and is similarly smooth to the zoom ring. Also comes with a petal-style lens hood included, which of course you can take off. So in fact the zoom on this lens is fixed, which means the lens doesn't extend out of the barrel at all, which is perfect if you're using a gimbal, for example, for video work, as the weight isn't shifted around. But of course remember it's electronic only, so only zooms when the camera is turned on. OSS is optical stabilization, which means stabilization is built into the lens, which is great for cameras such as the Sony a5100 or the a6000, which don't have in-body stabilization built in. The stabilization is particularly useful for videos at that longer focal range. As you can see, without it turned on, the video will shake quite a lot. But with it on, it smooths it out pretty well. And video in particular is where I feel this lens excels. I use it now for the majority of my YouTube videos, whether that's in the studio or out and about, and is also a really great all-round lens for photography. So here now are some example videos and photos from this lens. So overall, I think this is a great lens for video and a really good all-round lens for photography. You'll find your shots are very sharp, especially in the center of your images. The versatile zoom range paired with that constant f4 aperture makes it a great all-round lens and a very worthy upgrade from the 16 to 50mm kit lens, especially if you want to retain the flexibility that a zoom lens can give you. The price of this lens is quite steep, around £400, $500, but you can pick them up much cheaper secondhand, which is exactly what I did with mine. I've been using this lens, the Sony 18-105, for a few months now, and I've been very impressed with its performance so far. Of course, many of you out there will prefer prime lenses, but if you're looking for a zoom, I think this is a very viable option. So are there any other lenses you'd like me to take a look at? Let me know in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing to the channel and dropping a like on the video. And if you want to check out my photography, you can find it on Instagram at aaron.prescott. But that's it for me for now. Until next time, see ya.